South Korea is officially on the hunt for a new president after the court's dismissal of now former President Yoon Suk Yeol. What kind of leader do the South Korean people want, and what kind of leadership does the country need? Let's turn to Professor Mason Richey. Good morning.
Good morning.
So a new poll says the number one task for a new president, according to South Korean people, is economic recovery and vitalization. Why the economy?
Yeah, so, I think that there's a number of things that might explain that. I think probably the first one is that, to some degree, there's probably been, at least in the short term, a kind of lowering of the temperature politically, ever since the Constitutional Court decision, and perhaps a sense among the broad part of the population, definitely among the Democratic Party of Korea supporters, and I think also for the moderates and the independents, that the democratic process here more or less worked, and so perhaps it's easy to sort of paper over some of the deep fissures that still remain here. So there's, I think, been a little bit of an acceptance of the ruling by the criminal court. And then, of course, both parties, both major parties have to begin to turn towards the presidential election, which means, in the case of the Democratic Party, moving forward with the program that they want to put into place. And if you're the PPP, you have to sort of balance, making some gestures to your base who probably want to relitigate some of the martial law impeachment issue, but also putting forth a positive vision for the country as a whole, because there really is, a thirst out there among Korea, as a whole. It's like a long distance runner, who needs a Pocari drink to revitalize and rehydrate afterwards. There's really a sense that South Korea needs to top up and move forward in a positive direction.
Right, so economic recovery on top of list. Now, number two job to work on is, according to the poll, a national integration and a conflict resolution. Professor Richey, what kind of national integration and conflict resolution do the South Korean people want, do you think?
So, if I'm going to be cynical on that, I would say that, to some degree, both sides want the other side to capitulate to what they want, right? I mean, that's the integration that you would like to have, would be that your side wins and the other side loses, and your side gets to push through what it wants, and the other side will accept it. And that's not a very positive thing to think, and to some degree, it contradicts what I just said about the sense that South Korea is looking to move past some of these political issues. But I think that there is a little bit of a schizophrenia here. On the one hand, that people are looking forward to certain measures that they want to see government put in place to make their lives better, while they all do also sense that there are some deep political polarization issues here in the country. I think that to answer your question in a less cynical way, there's a diffuse sense in this country, I think, that things should just be going quote unquote better, whatever that means. That might be the birth rate long term. That might be work-life balance. That might be polarization. That might be the pressure that people feel socially and culturally. And I think that there's a sense here in a sort of diffuse way, in different ways, of course, among different populations, that things need to be better, and that perhaps the politicians here have not done enough to push that forward. Politicians can't solve these problems. A lot of these problems need to come from changes among the population itself, in terms of being better about where it is that people get their political information and how important politics is in our everyday lives. But of course, politicians can also, I think, help this by not inflaming that polarization, which they unfortunately do all too often for electoral reasons.
They can definitely lead by example. Now, the president that people want is a leader who can revitalize the economy, like we mentioned. But what are the qualities, abilities, and virtues that the people and the Republic of Korea need in the next president?
Sure. So I think I would answer this question sort of differentiating between what it is that perhaps I think is needed versus what it is that the people might actually want.
Right.
I think, as I said, to some degree, at least hardcore supporters on both sides really want a leader who can crush the other side and cause it to capitulate. But I don't think that's what's needed. I think what's needed among the political class, and especially among the very elite leaders, and obviously the president, whoever that's going to be, starting on June 3rd, is compromise, moderation, a capacity for both, dealing with short-term urgent issues, but also marrying that with, long-term strategy, and indeed setting the country on a pathway for the time after that person, that president, or the group of elites will be in office. Someone who's fair-minded, someone who has an ability to listen to both sides and take both sides into account in terms of the things that they're looking for. Flexibility, of course. The world is in a moment of profound change and transformation, and also a clean record. And I have to say that's one of the things that clearly seem like it's a black mark against Lee Jae-myung. And we'll see if the PPP manages to exploit that through whichever candidate they nominate.
That is a list of qualities for an ideal leader, Professor Richey. Now, we are now seeing some prominent figures jump into the election race. Now, starting with the Democratic Party of Korea, what are some of the tasks and challenges that the DP must overcome in order to win this election?
Yeah, that's obviously a long list in some respects, but I think the short answer to that is it's the DP's election to lose. Unless they shoot themselves in the foot, they should be able to win this, at least based on the polling data that we see now. I think, if I were advising the Democratic Party here, I would tell them that whoever it is that they select should be someone, with a clean record. I think it should be someone, who has flexibility in terms of the economic challenges that the country faces, someone who, can navigate a difficult environment between an erratic United States and a highly problematic and predatory China, someone who's going to, build for a strong national defense to confront and to deter North Korea. I think that those are the things that I would tell the DP to look towards, and we'll see whether or not they manage to pull that together and have a narrative that does that. I think, of course, the main thing that the DP is probably going to try to do simply not shoot themselves in the foot, try not to get in the way of the PPP's infighting, which is likely to be the case as it goes through its electoral process as well.
Well, what for the PPP then? I mean, how should the People Power Party recover, from the impeachment ruling, all the political drama, and what position do you think it should have in the presidential election?
So, I said, I think it was last week when I was on here that, the main thing that the PPP needs to do is to move forward, turn the page on martial law, turn the page on the impeachment, turn the page on Yoon Suk Yeol's removal from office, provide a positive agenda going forward, acknowledge with humility the problems that led to the martial law, the impeachment, and Yoon's removal from office, and put forth a candidate who can appeal to moderate and independent voters, while also not alienating Yoon Suk Yeol's more hardcore supporters. That's obviously a really tough task, and frankly speaking, they haven't done it really. From the discourse that we've seen from the party so far, they've tried to relitigate parts of the impeachment process. They've tried to brand the Democratic Party of Korea as a threat to democracy, which is clearly going to fall flat considering what just happened with the martial law episode and the impeachment and removal from office by Yoon that followed on that. So if I were advising them, I would tell them, to cut off, knock off the relitigation of the impeachment and look forward. And we've seen Oh Se-hoon, who represented a possible strand of doing so, pull out of the race really before he entered it. Now we're seeing, some discussion perhaps of Han Bok-soo, who has at least a little bit of that profile in terms of being a centrist and someone who could appeal to the middle and someone who's known for integrity. But it looks like the party is not very enthusiastic about him for running. by him running. So, we'll have to see who it is that the PPP manages to put forward to tick all of those boxes. But it's obviously a very tough thing to do to both appeal to moderates and independents while also satisfying the base.
Indeed. Professor Richey, it was good to see you again this morning. Thank you as always for your insight.
Thank you for having me.